So shall we start? Are you ready?
Yeah, sure,
Yeah.
sure. See how it
So
goes.
yeah, I mean your biography started from the early 1980s. You participated in a Graham Common Women's Peace Camp,
Yeah.
and I was wondering what your experience are like and how did you come to ecofeminism and eco-socialism from the peace movement?
Well, I don't think I would have come to it without Greenham Common, just about. It was early on in the ecology movement. The ecology movement only got going in the 1970s, really. So when the cruise missiles were sighted on the Common, I came because of socialism, because of peace movement, because of feminism. But I hadn't thought of ecology apart from awareness that the cruise missiles would destroy everything that there was in the earth, as it was. But I was really impressed by this huge women-only peace camp that went on for nearly 20 years.
Yeah.
And there was art. There was a big goddess figure which was there. The women were well organized, and they sang protest songs, and they're very brave. They went to prison. They invaded the base. They got arrested. I mean, it was just an amazing experience. I wasn't a full timer by any means. I was what you could call a weekender.
Mm.
Yeah, anyway, it's quite far south from us up in Newcastle. So we sent down a group of women went down to support the big actions, like the 30,000 women who did embrace the base.
Okay.
And so yes, it was a very interesting, very exciting time.
And why was it only women only movement?
Well, it started off with a march from Wales in the
Okay.
west to protest about the sighting of cruise missiles in the early 1980s.
Yes.
And there were men, there were families with that. And then they got there, and the first camp was with men and women, but the decision was taken that it would be stronger as a women's camp because the men might get aggressive with the men in the camp, in the
Okay.
common camp, the military base, might get aggressive with the men, whether they find it less easy to be aggressive with the women.
How
So it was thought the
interesting.
power of women would be stronger than the likely aggression, not the aggression of the men on the peace camp, but the aggression of the men on the military base.
And a lot
But
of
of course, there were
members
women
in
on the
the
military base as well.
okay. So a lot of women in the camp became like being involved with the ecofeminism or
Yes, yes. So
eco-socialism in
there
specific.
was a bit. I first found ecofeminist literature there, and
Okay.
women's poetry, and all the artists' work, and all the. You see, a lot of the action was around the perimeter of the base. It has a 6 mile perimeter of fencing, of metal fencing, and the women decorated it with lots of rainbow images and peace images and things like that. And they also cut holes in the fence and went through and got arrested. And I still got a piece of the fence on my shelf.
Oh yeah.
Of,
How
of
big are
but
they? Like how big the fence?
oh no, can you get a piece of thing? It's up on the shelves there somewhere, up on the right hand side. I'll show you my fence.
Oh,
I've kept it
cool.
all these years.
Exactly like
Well, that's
50.
40
Yeah.
years, isn't it?
Wow,
This is
that's
the fence.
nice.
It's made up of this kind of greeny
Oh,
covered metal.
oh my God.
Yes,
Wow.
little artifact. I can't part with it.
Yeah.
I'll have to take it with me. I'll have to have it buried with me or something. It's the Greenham Common fence.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah.
And then you got to write this very important book, which is our title of our symposium, Breaking the Boundaries Towards Feminist,
Mm.
Green and Socialism in 1992. So it's like, it's about 10 years of research, I would say, from
Yes, it was. I read everything that the movement, the ecofeminist movement was just beginning in the 1970s. So 1980s, it was building up. And but the early writers, you know, there was writers in France. There's André Lorde with the poetry. There was Rosemary Radford Reuther. She was writing from a kind of eco-socialist feminism, so that went with me. There was Maria Mies was just getting going. It was there was a lot of. I mean, there was a smallish movement to start with, but it was growing very, very fast and very
Mm,
multifaceted. So I just read everything I could get hold of, and a lot of it was American,
mm,
because there's a big movement in America. But I also followed eco-socialism as well, and got tied up with the launch in the late 1980s of Capitalism, Nature, Socialism, the
mm,
journal. But I think the most important thing is I began to realize that the more structural analysis of socialist analysis, particularly Marxian analysis, and not that I wrote these weren't Marxist books, but the idea of seeing the structure of
mm,
society and the structure of economies. So I used that sort of methodology really of
mm,
seeing things as structural, not choice, not affinity, but they were all I felt they were all interconnected.
mm,
And of course, there was the movement of the eco-socialists about the second contradiction of capital. The capital wasn't just destroying its own markets, it was destroying its own environment, it was just destroying its personal relationships. So capitalism was a widespread destructive
mm.
force. So it was all happening.
Wow, amazing. And so speaking of structure, because you made this dualist model of economic man versus women.
The most important thing I want to say about this dualist model is it's not essentialist. It's not
Mm-hmm.
saying that men are like this and women are like that, because economic man can quite easily be a woman
Yes.
who who follows economic man principles of disembodiedness, transcendence over current circumstances, power, economic value. The women can go with that, can follow that trend equally. And women's work, therefore, although it is mainly done by women, this is where the future concept we can talk about in a minute, imposed altruism, that more women's work is done by women, but it's also done by slaves, it's done by children, it's done by men when they do it by choice or they do it because they're have no other choice but to do this. So, and I sort of built this kind of dualist model of the destructive economic man who can be female, stressing market value, personal wealth, the importance of labor and intellect, skills and tradable knowledge, having able-bodied workers, having exploitable resources and unlimited consumption. And up against these are the less valued and the more necessary parts of human existence. The work of women's work, which is basically the work of the body and building social relationships, subsistence, making sure there's enough, the minimum for people, social reciprocity, which is done through obligations or friendships, bodies and emotions, which can't easily put a price to them, feelings and wisdom, which again you can't easily put a price to, those who are rejected by the formal market system, the formal economy, the sick, the needy, the old, the young, who aren't wanted, only the able-bodied workers are wanted, the ecosystem and wild nature that can't be tamed. And the principle that I'm trying to talk about these days is the idea of sufficiency, enough. Why do we have to have you have to put a limit on consumption, and therefore, to me, sufficiency is what we should be aiming for. Enough for all, but not too much for some and too little for others. So that's the model I've basically worked with all the way through. I've also seen the material relationship here is that the economic man materially depends on the women's work. Otherwise, that economic man can't exist. If that economic man has to, deal with the incontinent older person or a child in distress, he, in inverted commas, can't go and earn huge amounts of money on the stock market. So there's a dependency here of this transcendent economic man against this kind of woman figure or woman's body work that does that really fills the gaps.
So it's like roughly saying the left is the value of capitalism and the right
Yeah.
side is a value of socialism. And I mean, also roughly say like a bourgeois feminist or bourgeois women can be economic men easier than the
Yeah.
working
Yes.
class women.
Yes. Well, my kind of socialism is a kind of welfare socialism, because we it's not just capitalism, because historical societies would have favored personal wealth and the exploitable and unlimited consumption. Think of all the royal families and their amount of consumption. So the dualist model is the model of dominant exploiters of economics right through history. And the women's work has also had to exist right through history. We're embodied and embedded in nature, and somebody has to do the work of dealing with that question. They have to see us when we're born, and they have to see us through until we die. And that's a big job.
Yeah. Humans are born with it, right?
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, that's a model, and I think people have found that model quite useful.
Yes, it's very clear. And you said the women's work as an imposed altruism. Like there's and also there were only feminist campaign called Wages for Housework from the 70s with the amazing activists and were rejecting this kind of existence of monetary economy.
And so there was a big debate. And as I said in my little piece, I got caught in the middle of them because a socialist feminist thought I was too green and essentialist. And they made their feelings quite clear that I was, if I started talking anything about ecology, feminism, woman and nature, that was an anathema to the socialist feminists.
Okay.
And they quite literally cut me dead.
Okay.
But but I was far too worldly and structurally
Yeah.
involved in the ongoing society
Okay.
to fit in with the more decentralized, more emotional, more spiritual
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Who I wasn't spiritual and green enough for them. So it was a lonely world really. But there were lots of them in there with me. There were like Ariel Rosale and people. There were lots of us who were hovering between all the different movements, trying to integrate the ideas,
Mm.
and hence the breaking the boundaries.
Wow.
Um, we're sort of trying but it's quite a complex argument, I think, to put forward. So it, but I persevered with it, and I think it got through in the end.
Okay. Because for me, like this movement that would call like wages for housework sounds like a welfare socialism to me.
Yes, yes, it does to me as well. It doesn't sound as if they're trying to make women join the
Yeah.
rat race, as it were.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the important thing about imposed altruism
Yes,
is
yes,
that
please.
I separated out what I called affinity ecofeminism, which
Mm-hmm.
is the people who argue that because women are nurturing, loving, caring work, this and labor and nature is equally nurturing and giving birth to the life, as it were, then there is an affinity between women and nature that men don't have. I
Mm.
reject that because men are part of nature as well, and it lets them off the hook. If you say women are responsible for the relationship with nature, then men can just fly off and just. So I didn't think that was a fair way to see how men were anyway.
Yeah.
Then there were people who recognized the exploitation of women and nature, but didn't see any material relationship to it. It was just
Okay.
happened that women were exploited and men were, and nature was exploited, and I called that contingency. They just sort of exist alongside each other. But what I try to say from the material of ecofeminism is that the women's work is materially essential for economic man to exist. So it's a structural position. It's not a choice position. It's not an affinity.
Mm.
It's a structural role which tends to be imposed on women, although often they express it in terms of love, duty, care. So the women themselves may not express it as an imposition,
Mm.
but it has to be imposed on somebody.
Yeah.
Somebody has to do it. And if economic man won't do it,
Yeah.
then somebody who has through obligation or fear. I mean, women are so culturally, in many cases, tied to the home and care work, and they don't have much choice of it, really. So it's a difficult position to, but I think the idea of it is altruistic because you're not paid or you're underpaid,
Yeah.
but it's an imposed altruism.
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, the money thing comes out of this model because
Yes.
the dualist model, the economic man model, is the functioning mechanism is money and the
Yes.
allocation of money and the access to money.
Yeah.
And the main thing about women's work is it's underpaid or unpaid, hence the Wages for Housework campaign,
Yeah.
or the Marilyn Waring's book on the counting systems that didn't count women's unpaid labour or the natural environment. So this model, this dualist model, led me to ask questions about, well, what is money? Why are some things valued in money terms and not others? Why is something which is so universal and necessary as care for people, why
Yeah.
is that seen as having no economic value? Whereas somebody can go and gamble on the horses, and that's seen as being a worthy thing to spend money on, or footballers.
Yeah. And you go develop like what money is, which is very different from the orthodox economists was addressing what money is, and which is like you said money itself is an active agent. Um, then the orthodox economics says it's a passive one. And
Well,
can you?
I struck lucky again because I came into ecofeminism, eco-socialism fairly early on. Not right at the beginning. I wasn't one of the people who broke the boundaries to start. I was a bit later. But there were lots of people questioning money,
Oh yeah.
the dominance of money in modern society, and beginning around about the 80s and 90s, and really coming into most in the next century, in the 2000s. And there was lots of people questioning the financial system and the dominance of financial and what money was and how money was circulated, and particularly the role of debt, banking. Lots and lots of questions being raised, and so it came to I thought you can't overthrow break down this dualist model
Mm-hmm.
unless you ask fundamental questions about how the mechanism works that constructs this model. And then, of course, I went right through the history of money, right from the earliest human societies, thousands of years ago, to present day financialized systems, banking crisis. But I was lucky again because just as I was writing my book, the Future of Money, that crash, the crash of 2007-8
Yes.
happened. They put the publication of the book back a year,
Yeah.
but because I had to work out what the crisis was about,
Yeah.
and then I started developing the idea of public money from
Yeah.
that, and the way the public had been squeezed out of the control of money by the market privatization and by the myths of money.
Yeah.
That's why I stressed a lot of the thing about the mythology of money and this mythology of money was embedded in the textbooks. It wasn't just myths in, silly journals and things. It was the heart of the basic economics textbooks. It told lies about the nature and origins of money.
Yeah.
And so that became my campaign then to overthrow capitalist money.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's not only
A bit of a
UK, it's
wild
like
card, I think.
everybody think that that's just like such a common sense that you stop even questioning it from the early on. Like no one is questioning.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
because
But lots of people are questioning now. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
nobody in the political elite are listening.
Because with the neoliberalism in the 80s, like until like financial crisis in 2007 and 2008, all this right-wing politics of money is like, suppressing all this progressive movement, and you invented this word and by economic. And can you tell us about what that meant?
Well, it was the whole attack on the welfare state.
Yep.
And the state control of the money supply,
Yep.
because historically, states, well, it still is in most constitutions and most rules that the right to create money is not anybody can do it.
Yep.
You have to have a position of sovereignty to be able to create money. And there was this attack on the public creation of money that I call handbag economics.
Yes.
And I'm not the only one who's made this observation.
Okay.
It was when, but it fed that growth of the late part of the last century, from the 1980s onward, of the money is the god. Money, you mustn't, states mustn't print money, they mustn't borrow money, they mustn't spend money, austerity, that all money must go to the market because the market is where money is quite literally made.
Yeah.
And the welfare state is just a burden on the market. Whereas up until the 1980s, it was accepted there was a mixed economy. I mean, we'd had 2 world wars, which had meant that the states had to run the economy. It wasn't questioned that the state. We had to rescue the Great Depression. They had to rescue the banking systems. This was state rescue, but this was all forgotten. I mean, the states could take control of economies, up to 67% of economies in the war economy. But all this got forgotten, and it was assumed that the only source of money was the private market. And it's ended up with the attack on the welfare state, so much so that we got to the point now where the richest man in the world has been given the job of slashing the public economy of the United States.
Yeah.
I mean, it is crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, just the mentality of somebody who's sitting on the biggest pile of money in the world, trying to make people poorer.
Yeah.
Not even doing it as a side effect of the private sector trade. It's a political choice to destroy the public economy.
Yeah.
And
people voted for it.
unbelievable.
People voted for it.
Yeah. And they voted for it because they were excluded from access to ready money through well-paid jobs, or jobs at all. So you end up you put into power a person who will destroy even further your economic base. But then, of course, then you blame the migrants, and you blame the undocumented, and you end up, I'm afraid, with fascism, which is where we ended up in the 30s. If we can't find some way of preventing it.
Mm.
It's yeah, it's not a good time to be coming near to the end of my life, quite literally, and to see things deteriorating so badly and so cruelly. You know, I only hope I live long enough to see something a bit more benign turn up.
Yeah, in the
But
midst
it
of
doesn't look like it at the moment.
yeah.
Yeah. And of course, the point of view of women,
Yeah.
the right-wing movements in Italy, in France, in Germany are all led by women. So the idea of women being the gentler creatures are more compassionate is not borne out.
Shall we move to the next slide?
Yes, yes.
Because you talked a lot about that, like who can decide who gets that, or how bank system works,
Yes,
this
that's right.
capitalist system, and the
Well,
question about democracy, who get to decide, and can you, yeah, and like because the creation and circulation of money is a political question today.
absolutely, absolutely. Remember all the things about where's the magic money tree when you talk about, well, I don't know if you had this in Korea, but in Britain we had when you asked for more welfare or rescuing people or more public spending, you were told there's no money, there's no magic money tree, and so of course then that asks the question, so where does money come from if there's no magic money tree or no magic money mine? And basically, there's only two sources of money in modern society. That is the public ability to create money and spend it, and the ability of banks
Yeah,
to lend money they don't have,
yeah,
effectively. So the mythology of money was that money was invented by the market. That's not true. Money's as old as human history. Money was based on gold. That's not true because gold existed long before markets, and lots of money things through history haven't been gold. So those are so the question is who does create money, control money, and it's really between the public economy and the private economy. And what has happened under the ideological capitalism of neoliberalism was that they harnessed the public power to create money through the banking system to turn all money into debt.
yeah.
Now it's quite a complex view. So there's no really beginning or end in money, but it's basically in a constant flow or circuit. So perhaps we can look at the next slide. Now the bank money circuit is it was always the ideology was that people deposited their savings in the bank, and the bank then lent this out to other people who wanted money to buy a house or start a business or whatever it is. But the amount of money that the banks lent was always much more than they had any savings themselves, anything as it were in the vaults. So the concept was invented of fractional reserve banking, which is a way of saying the bank doesn't actually have any money.
Yeah.
But banks lend, but they lend through debt. They don't give you the money. You've got to pay it back, and you've got to pay it back with interest or with administrative costs. If you're in Islamic banking, you can put the costs in other ways. But for the non-Islamic banking, the lending is paying interest. Therefore, you're in a position where the banks are putting money into the economy, but they're wanting more back than they've actually put out.
Yeah.
Because they want the loan repayment with interest.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a constant need for more money in the system.
Yeah.
and the circle keeps going as long as people are borrowing money. But as soon as they get overburdened with money, with debt, overburdened with debt, then the circuit breaks down. And that's when the state has to step in. But bank lending as the source of the money supply is a real problem because, for a start, it's very unfair because anybody who hasn't got any, who isn't creditworthy, who hasn't got some money support anywhere or some access to money, can't borrow in the first place. So it's unfair. It also demands growth because you've got to repay with interest. So it's got to demand growth. But also when it starts to fail, it very easily goes into crisis, and your money supply dries up. Because if nobody's borrowing any money, nobody's putting any new money into the system. And then the public sector has to come in. So if we go to the next one.
Is that what happened in the 2007 and 8?
Sorry, I couldn't hear that.
That what happened in the financial crisis in
Oh, yes.
7 and 8?
Yes, yes. Because there is the money isn't a thing, it's a flow. And if anything interrupts the flow, then it goes into crisis. And faith, trust in the whole system breaks down. And we got a very a good example of that in this country. One of our first things that failed was a mutual building society. That's the not-for-profit building society. And it had lent more than it had in ready deposits by quite a lot, and therefore the rumor has that it was going to go bust. So people started queuing up outside to get their money out of it. And the person who ran the bank assured them that the banking system was safe and the bank was safe. The building society was safe. But no, in fact, I think it had converted to a bank by now. Anyway, the person who was head of it, the chief executive, couldn't quite calm them down. The head of the Bank of England went and tried to calm them down and say, "Go home, your money's safe." It was only when the chancellor of the country, the head of the political, the head of the state, the chancellor of the exchequer, went and said to them, "Look, your money is safe." They went home. So they didn't believe their boss. They didn't believe the head of the Bank of England, but they believed the government. And that really is where in the end the strength of an economy lies. Can you trust your government? Because that's the last person standing. And public. So where does public money come from? Well, my argument is that public spending actually creates the money. It's not collecting money in off the taxpayer. It's actually setting a budget which allocates particular ability to spend and put that money through the system, and it gets it back from taxation and other public income. And the model works the other way around from the private banking sector, because the governments never get back 100% of what they put out. Governments always run a slight deficit or sometimes a big deficit. And that deficit is the money that is available to go through into the commercial bank-based system to provide the extra money that system needs. So far from the ideology of cut public spending, live within your means, leave as much money with the taxpayer as possible, is not the way forward. That public spending is actually the source of the stability of the economy, or the ability of the public to spend. So that is my argument of how the modern system works. works through these flows of money, the public flow of money, the private flow of money, and the interaction between them. And that if the way that we've been interpreting public spending, public debt, is a complete misunderstanding of how the system works. That's quite a complicated argument, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
But I've written three books already.
Yeah.
Debt or Democracy, because of course public spending doesn't have to pay, the public doesn't have to pay any interest
Yeah.
on it. It can issue money as it were free of debt. And your economy needs a certain amount of access to debt-free money, particularly if it's going to collapse as it did in 2007-8.
Yeah.
And of course, in COVID, the economy was saved by massive public expenditure. Yeah. So it seems crazy that this has happened before our very eyes from the COVID and the collapse of the system, and yet we're not changing the models, which seems to me quite crazy.
Yeah.
So that's what I've tried to explain anyway.
Great. Yeah, it's everybody's still not talking about like going beyond the system or moving forward, like move beyond the system. Still, like they're all still thinking that this model will work forever.
Yeah, now before the 1970s and 80s, this model would not have been unusual. I mean, it would be assumed that the public could spend money if it needed to. But this has all been obliterated by the ideology of neoliberalism.
Yep.
But so basically, what I've been trying to do is to rescue the idea of public money in the public economy. Not to annihilate the market economy, but to come back to where we were before, which is the acceptance that there are two sectors, the public and the private.
Yeah.
And they both, to an extent, need each other, as it were.
Okay.
Because since I'm advocating a public economy, how would it work? And I think that it would only work with public participation at the heart of it. So the way I would see the model working is that the public would participate, and you could have this by citizen juries or participants of interest who put forward the budgeting needs. Things whether they think it's spent wrongly or whether they'd like more. So anyway, but it should be those involved in the different structures or those involved in on a community base would put forward their requests and their suggestions for the needed public expenditure. The government would then take account of this public participation by putting forward budget proposals. And that is the money creation element. That is where the government, by deciding it's going to have a budget that is based on participation, it will put forward its budget and the proposals. The central bank would then assess what the impact of that level of expenditure, whatever it may be, would have on the market and the value of money, the flow of money, and the government would respond to that by putting forward its tax proposals to manage the economy. So it would the role of tax wouldn't be to raise the money for public expenditure. It would be a way of retrieving the money that it's proposing to spend before it inflates the market. Because if people are always worried about public expenditure and inflation. So tax becomes the instrument of the general flow of currency and the general size of the currency. So that is the model I've put forward to integrate the public economy with the private economy.
Okay, so this is like the alternative model that, but does this model require a new form of government, do you think?
Not necessarily. It just needs mechanisms to enable the public to participate, other than voting every so often. The people who are using certain public services or involved in employed in certain areas would be able to participate on some. They'd have to have a model of public participation, but these already exist. You've had participatory budgeting already.
Yeah.
It's been trialed in lots of places. So it would just be a public sounding board for what would be a reasonable public service that you would want to achieve. So, but the government could run as it is now by setting a budget, an annual budget, and it would have to pay attention to the likely monetary impact on the private sector. So it's a way of managing the economy, stopping it getting out of balance, but also having a public participation element in it.
But this is really interesting model that you created. That's very democratic, and it makes sense, you know?
Well, I hope it does.
Yeah, it does. It totally does. But like, no one really suggest any kind of alternative model for the governmental budgeting system or tax system in a very different way, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's you notice that the arrows, the public participation is the tax proposals and the government with the budget proposals is two ways.
Yes.
But when it comes to the central bank, the
It's
central
just
bank
all
doesn't
day,
have
yeah.
can't have any say about budget proposals,
Yeah,
and it can only put its monetary impact assessment
yeah.